Yeah, it's crazy. A little snow and a little rain, melty.
Yes. No, this is my personal pen. You've got mine.
Yes.
No, because this is where I've got those.
Next time I shovel snow in the city, it's just not the shots. I shoveled snow. I shoveled some.
Okay.
Yeah, you can Photoshop.
Woman.
You blame him?
It's not an example that you guys want to live up to.
That's right. That's right.
That was informative for, if nothing else, just for, I can see the character. All right, let's call this meeting to order. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Lindsay,
Present.
Councilor Humbert,
Here.
Councilor Crane,
Here.
Councilor Weeks,
Here.
Councilor Howe.
There.
You have a quorum.
Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I please get a motion for approval of the minutes for the January 4th, 2024 council meeting?
I make a motion to approve January 4, 2024 council meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At this time, we've got a few folks signed up that'd like to address the council. Jackie Boyd.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I have a question about a village ordinance, 2.2.12, specifically section B, that says an employee elected to a position may not retain employment with the village if the elected position is incompatible with the village employment as determined by the village manager. My question is, since the village manager is also an elected official, in essence, the village manager is giving the village manager approval to violate an ordinance. And very frankly, I would love to see you do a terrific job in one position, not a half-assed job in two positions. So I don't know how much discussion the council went to on this. It just gives me a little heartburn. Thank you.
Next we have Tim Hageman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Commissioner Ware. My name is Tim Hageman. I work for the New Mexico Economic Development Department. Our cabinet secretary is Mark Roper, a native of Raton, and I'm the senior economic development division member. And my region covers 7 counties, and I'm located in Moore. Moore County provides me an office. We have 7 Main Street programs in my region, 1 in each county, and wanted to talk about some of the incentives that our department has, as well as incentives that you have. The village has a local economic development act ordinance, which allows you to provide local incentives and comply with the anti-donation clause regarding manufacturing. We also have the infrastructure government program where we do a cost share with the local government in regards to an airport or a business park. You have a business park here. We would love to see Agua Fria someday accepted by the village, Agua Fria Court. We have a water bottling plant that we'd like to open so that they can have semi-trucks ship out water bottles, oxygen water bottles. And that gross receipts tax would pay for a new employee that you may be wanting to hire. So that's just an example of a project. We've worked on retail projects. We've established a strategic economic development plan. And we've worked on housing. Unfortunately, property was sold by the village that could have been used for worker housing. So some of the other programs we have is, most of our programs are geared toward businesses. We have the JTIP program, which is a job training incentive program, which reimburses up to 75% of that new employee's wages for the first 6 months. And that would be an eligible business such as a fire water bottling plant. We also have international trade, where we help businesses establish their websites for doing business worldwide, as well as entrepreneurial program. We have a new creative economy program, as well as an outdoor recreation program that is doing very well and provides a lot of funding for trails, infrastructure needs such as restrooms, things that really provide a incentive to come to your community, just like the resort did when they put in their tremendous bike program. And then we also have our film office. We've done some films in this area, and we former mayor used to be our film liaison. So one of the things that I'd like to ask you to think about is assigning a film liaison as well as an economic development person in your village. I've been working with Mike Oversby for years on the economic development committee, but maybe there are others that should be considered. So I think I've covered everything for my 3 minutes, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. And please let me know how I can help. I'm only 30 minutes away.
Mark Manley.
Last week, local businesses, individuals through the Rotary Club graciously purchased the resort employees lunch on behalf of John Kitts and the resort. Wanted to say thank you. There's too many people here to list, but wanted to specifically thank current and former counselors, as well as Manager Weir. Again, thank you very much. It was much appreciated. Went through the line twice myself. So thank you, sincerely.
And finally, Adon Estrada.
Mr. Mayor, it was not my intention to speak. I apologize. Thank you.
At this time, move on the governing body reports. Do you have anything to report? Moving on to our manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, thank you. First of all, I do want to thank you guys for entrusting me with this very important position as village manager. I feel like we've already made significant progress in this village, but I will tell you there is a lot more to do. And it's, in many cases, it's been one step forward and two steps back in that we make some progress and then we find out that there's some other issue that's going on. So it's not going to happen overnight, but we are already well on our way. And I think if you talk to the staff, I think the staff will back up my comments that we are headed in the right direction. And so I do thank you for this opportunity. I see it as a great opportunity. And one thing I will tell you is I don't do anything half-assed. First of all, some accomplishments that we've had recently is we had a meeting with the county manager already to discuss activity at the airport. And one of the priorities for the people that are at the airport is we are working with the county to get a vehicle back at the airport, and we have a game plan to do so. We have other projects in conjunction with the county that we'll be working on related to workforce housing and, possibly taking the village's water sewer lines outside the village limits. It's a very preliminary thing to consider, but we have some things. We have a good open dialogue now between the mayor, the county manager, and the chairman of the county. So I think that's an important relationship. I did spend yesterday touring the wastewater treatment plant and viewing the improvements that are the $9.9 million in improvements that are being made there. It was very eye-opening. Still, a lot of people don't realize, but we don't even use 50% of the capacity of our wastewater treatment plant. They literally half the vats are empty in the plant right now. And this is a pretty, not the peak, but a pretty high volume time of the year when the ski resort is open. And so there's a lot of things. That plant is over 25 years old, and a lot of the equipment just deteriorated. It's made of metal, it rusts. And so it's virtually being replaced. One thing I found interesting as I asked the person that's leading that project, and I asked him, we got a loan for $9.9 million to bring this facility online. I said, what would it cost? Because, that facility is way overbuilt. Like I said, we're not even using 50% of the capacity right now. I asked him, I said, what would it cost if we built a brand new plant and it matched the capacity needed in the village of Angel Fire? We walked away from this one, put it on a different piece of land. What would it cost? He said, around $15 million. So the interesting thing is, because our plant is so underutilized, it's costing $10 million to rebuild it, basically. I mean, almost everything's getting replaced. I did find out that there are some things that were left out of the original bid that we're going to have to come to council for eventually. We'll talk about those more at a future meeting. But 9.9 to rebuild our plant versus building, right sizing and building a plant that would be appropriate for our size of usage would be about $15 million. So it just seemed, we need to expand. I guess the point is we need to expand the usage of our wastewater in the village of Angel Fire. That I think that needs to be a priority for us. We have made a couple of key personnel changes I wanted to inform the council of. One is that our deputy clerk, Mark McClendon, was promoted to clerk. And in doing so, he retained his responsibilities in procurement. So he will be both the clerk and our chief procurement officer, which he was previously. He's taken on a new role. The asset management, which is currently under him, will be moved, and we're working right now to figure out who's the right person to take over the role as asset manager. It's a very important role. But currently, Mark's doing all three. We also promoted or moved Tammy McClendon. She was the director of tourism. She's retaining that position and also taking over the director of HR. Those were two significant personnel changes that we made. And I would like everybody, if you would, please give a round of applause to these two. And I will say this again, I bet with the auditors, right now, the projection for last year's audit to be completed is the end of March. Unfortunately, right now we've hired consultants to help us complete that audit since it wasn't completed timely. Those consultants were struggling getting things. We finally got, just last week, we got a trial balance, which is huge, first step. We can't really send anything to the auditors until that's done, and that just happened last week. So with that work, I think it now opens the door and we can start getting the other pieces done pretty rapidly. Get it to them hopefully by the end of February. It'll take them a time to massage the data and everything and report back to this council, the findings and so on. And they're hoping to have it ready to submit to the state auditor by the end of March. I will tell you that we will be coming to you over the coming weeks with significant changes to the budget. There are a lot of issues that we've already found in the budget, and we haven't even finished the complete review of it as yet. But you're going to find that there are items that are budgeted that they were historically located in other places of the budget. Some of them, we haven't been able to trace back why the amounts have jumped 50, sometimes 100% year over year in those budgets. We're still trying to figure those things out. And so I think you will see coming in that same time frame by the end of March, I think we'll have this year's budget under control and as accurate as we can get it. But it's going to be a lot of ours that we're going to have to be bringing to council. Finally, get prepared because in about 3 weeks, we're going to start next year's budgeting process. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the methodology of providing Excel spreadsheets to department heads, asking them to do an itemized budget. And we're going to roll those in. We'll probably have a public meeting on the preliminary budget in the end of March. And then probably in April and then again in May, we'll have 2 additional public hearings on the budget. The one in May will be the final one that needs to be submitted on June 1st. So it's not going to be done. I think the last budget was primarily done, I would call it in-house, which means the finance department kind of threw a lot of it together. And that will not happen again. This is going to be something that's going to be driven by our department heads. They're going to be given prior year actuals, and they'll be given ranges in which they can mark up things, and we're going to work with them. And it's going to be at least 3 iterations of the budget where we go back and say, okay, now we need to cut here or cut here. And it'll be a process that we will deal directly with the department heads and complete it. So that's what's coming up. And I think the other items that I had on my list are actually we'll end up talking about them on the agenda. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Manager. This time we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Eckler?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the community, thank you for the opportunity for me to present this staff report this evening. And also, I want to take the time to thank you for the opportunity to serve my community in this capacity. I'm really looking forward to great things ahead. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kurt Epler. I'm the new Public Works Director for the Village of Angel Fire. I'll be overseeing solid waste, water and sewer, roads, and the maintenance department. Okay. I want to speak a little bit about the goals that I'm trying to set and bringing into this community in this position.
I really want to create an environment of collaboration between between departments within the village. I'm finding that pretty easy to do at this point, finding people willing to do so. It's going to lead to great things. Really want to make sure we have effective use of equipment and materials and facilities. One of the first things I'm doing is I really want to review the assets that Public Works has in regards to equipment, vehicles, facilities, to help identify age, how much life we have left, and what our needs are.
It's a road issue.
One thing I do want to establish in the community that I think is somewhat lacking is the ability to provide communication to the members of the community. A lot of people have questions in regards to everything, roads, water, so forth and so on. I'm hoping to create an environment where people feel comfortable to come to me and ask any questions. I am considering and would like input in towards, I'd like to create a town hall meeting setting where we can invite members of the community to come and literally ask me any questions they have in regards to Public Works. Do my best to answer these questions. I think it's a great opportunity to once again establish that communication. But I also see an opportunity to maybe help educate some of the members of our community that may be new to this area. We help educate them to the challenges of living in such an environment. And I think many great things can come from this. I truly believe that we can have better communication face to face than we can through email or definitely through social media. Okay. We have been somewhat successful in employee recruitment. We have not had a great number of needs for new employees, but have found that with the right job posting and looking for the right person, we've been getting applications, and staffing levels are pretty good at this point. So to give an update on for water and sewer, I too had the opportunity to tour the new sewer treatment facility with Manager Weir yesterday, and also attended a construction meeting with the engineers and contractors today. There is part of the project that is very common in most projects now. There's a challenge with the supply chain issues. There are some components that have been on order for quite some time that they're waiting to arrive. The intention is to do as much work as possible right now to get the plant as close to finished as possible, and then and also really pushing to get the components that we're waiting on to get here. Okay. RMCI, the contractor doing the work, is communicating very well with where they're at in the process and where they're at in the project. I do want to note that a real important component of the project is automation. There are many tasks that the plant operators are having to do now manually that are take a lot of time and labor intensive. It's literally a process where an act takes place, and then a certain amount of time is needed to make sure the act produces the desired result. It's quite a bit of time that through automation is going to be sped up, enabling the plant operator to focus on other things. So as with anything, automation can lead to greater efficiencies, and not just how the plant operates, but how the personnel utilize their time. With that, we've also spoken with vendors about SCADA systems, which are monitoring systems for different components of the water system, water tanks, booster pumps, wells,
And essentially, in a nutshell, what it gives us the opportunity to do is see what a problem is with a tank if it empties before we even go up there. You know, as of right now, it's all a manual act. We literally have to go up, identify the problem, and then make the plan from there. As we all have experienced up here at one time or another, when there's an issue, whether it's a power outage, so forth and so on, really when we get the warning, is when people start running out of water. Okay. The other element of it is there is a tremendous amount of time and labor dedicated to physically going and on a daily basis and checking these tanks, check the level of tanks. Okay, this is something that can be done remotely. That component alone is going, when it's resolved with automation, is going to free our staff in our water department up to better work on other things. You know, I can give a scenario where if the crew is planning to, say, install a meter or repair a water leak, sometimes that work may not start till 10 o'clock in the morning because you got to wait for the crew to get done reading tanks. Okay, it's an obvious major inefficiency. So we are pursuing that. The other thing we have discussed, and this has been in discussion before, is the meter replacements. Antiquated meters, non-existent meters, just bringing things up to date. There's some very old meters out there, and I think you're all aware of that. Next, I'd like to speak of solid waste and start off by saying they've been doing a tremendous job, even through busy times. You know, the need for extra effort was identified at the beginning of the year, and the effort was put forth, and everything was just great through the holidays. And has been since. A few notable bullet points here that were provided. 24 new 3-yard containers are due to arrive the second week of February. The new containers are very nice. The ones we have received, you can see. And I do want to note that it was conveyed that even though I was not in the job yet, so I can't tell you how much they cost, it was conveyed to me that Mr. Scully did a tremendous job in shopping these containers to get us a good price, better than most anybody else has been able to get. All 20 tons of cardboard that's been diverted from the landfill. That's huge, absolutely huge. And I do want to note that, you know, the first 13 days I was in this job, we were dealing with snow or wind every single day. Very difficult driving conditions. And through that time, Solid Waste Department was able to identify little windows of opportunity to haul bulk material down to the landfill in Wagon Mountain. And they did so effectively and safely. So very grateful for that. Okay. I'll finish with roads. Like I said, first 13 days, either snow or wind. Wouldn't want it any other way. Okay, that's what we love. We love snow up here. But I do want to say that it's important to know that having a full staff in the roads department is huge. To the point where 1 or 2 people are missing out of the equation, it can have definitely impact our ability to open all roads. I have just realized that with the full crew, which we look at as the full crew is 3 motor graders and 3 plow trucks, we can effectively clear the snow off of every road in Indian Fire in 8.5 to 9 hours. Okay. That's without any extra circumstances. If it's not snowing while we're doing it, or if we don't have the high winds. Okay. But to put it into perspective, weekend before last, as we experienced very high winds, created a unique situation where our areas of greatest need were down in the bottom of the valley, those areas most exposed to wind. So on that Saturday, sorry, I don't have the date, one road, Buckskin Road in Halo Pines, about a mile of road, took just short of 10 hours to do, that one road. We encountered drifts in excess of 7 feet, and 2 days later had to do it all over again. Okay? And I point this out because we need to understand that to have one single way or one single approach to plow roads is not always viable, because the storms are different, the conditions are different. There are times where, we have the perfect example, where down in the bottom of the valley, you think there's always the least amount of snow. And it was very challenging with the wind event. Tried our best to prioritize. It was very difficult. There were many people that were in need. But I will mention that we got kind of lucky making the choice to clear Buckskin Road on Saturday. I was later informed that early in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was an ambulance call out on Buckskin Road. And fortunately, we had that road cleared, where earlier that day or the day before, it was fully drifted in, depths over 7 feet. So with that, I would like to end, but before I do, I would like to again mention, I'd really like to establish an environment of free communication, and hope that I could get support in initiating a public meeting where I would love to sit down or stand up, whatever, and answer people's questions and help in any way I can.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to share something with the council and the public. Because of that snowstorm, we had worked our streets crew excessively during the week to try and keep the roads open. Even though Saturday was windy, it was a non-snow day, and Director Epler here made a decision to rest his crew. And so all day Saturday, 14 hours, and at least 10 hours on Sunday that I know of, he single-handedly went out and cleared Buckskin Road, which did result in a life-saving event that morning, and a few other roads that we have here in the northwest part of town that are very subject to high winds. And so on behalf of the council and the public, Director Epler, I'd like to thank you for that extraordinary effort that you did last weekend in keeping our roads clear.
I appreciate that, Mr. Weir, but everybody needs to know that I really did have a good time. But I also did want to mention that those situations, the plow truck was no good, motor grader was ineffective, had to be done with a front end loader, and we've got one. Sorry, just couldn't see calling in the guys to watch me have fun. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Director, I have a couple of questions for you. Again, thank you for your efforts. They haven't gone unnoticed, the roads with the graders on them and the trash as well. The solid waste, particularly over by the police department, has been in the best shape I've seen it since I've been here. Also, these are going to seem mundane to the other tasks that you've taken on, but the dumpsters, I've noticed the dumpsters closest to the police department are a new latch system. Those of you that use those, instead of the carabiners, it's the loop. Is that something that we're standardized on and moving towards, or is that just the luck of what we got on the last ordering? I much prefer, and I've heard feedback from others, that we prefer the non-carabiner ones greatly to the old style, if that is in fact the case.
As I think everybody would agree, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Stove for a nod. If the new ones are Gully, I'm sorry.
Yes, we will be moving towards those.
They're cost effective and easy to use.
Great. I think they're a much better solution. The other question I had is, if you feel like it's something, we have 2 more large holidays coming up with the ski season. We've got President's Day weekend and our 2 spring breaks. How do you feel like we're doing capacity wise for solid waste in more the core area? I'm not in the condo area very much, but is that something that needs more manpower or money, dumpsters? Is there something over there that we ought to consider for those upcoming next couple of peak seasons? Or do you have any thoughts there, or something we should discuss next meeting?
No, absolutely. It's absolutely in consideration. I do want to note that we do intend to hire another employee. We did interviews today to ensure that that there is another person when we are open on the weekends. And because essentially I found a situation existed where during the weekend there were times where a person getting in the truck to empty dumpsters was by himself, and I wasn't comfortable with that. So we're going to take every opportunity and discuss options to be proactive and be prepared for the busier weekends. And we'll be doing that in all areas, roads as well.
Okay.
To backtrack a little bit, one thing I did forget to mention is I am making an adjustment in the schedule for roads department to ensure that there is crew here on the weekends. It won't necessarily be full crew, but to make sure that we do have at least a partial crew to be visible for small or immediate needs, with the understanding that if we're forecasted to get snow through the weekend, it's all hands on deck. We'll have the whole crew here. But I found that there just hasn't been any presence at all through the weekend. It was essentially either an on-call or trying to make the call ahead of time. I want to have at least a partial crew through the weekend, especially to address needs within the village where we have a lot of concentrated traffic areas that even a small amount of snow can have a great impact on safety. So that's what we're doing on that end to prepare. And obviously going into the we have busy holidays coming up and everything. It's extra focus, and I would rather have crew in and not have enough to do than not have any crew in and have more than we can handle. So it's a matter of we're one way or another, we're still going to be battling Mother Nature, but we do have something at our disposal, and that's forecast. We can get on our phone and we'll do our best to make a call in the most responsible way in regards to budget, but also making sure the citizens of the community are the highest priority and we'll get them taken care of.
Thank you. Chief Britnell?
Awesome. Mayor Lindsay, Manager Weir, Council. For those who have not met me, my name is Teek Britnell. I'm your interim fire chief. I have over 30 years of experience in both fire and EMS, and I have worked for the Angel Fire Fire Department for almost 2 years as a paramedic firefighter. Thank you for this opportunity to serve our community. I appreciate all the support that I have received from Village Hall administration, the fire department, career and volunteer staff, and the community. I transitioned to my role as interim fire chief on January 8th. I am now just over 2 weeks in, and I have been busy working on our schedule, fleet, training, and budget. My goal with the schedule is to always have a minimum of 2 crews available to respond to 2 simultaneous EMS calls and/or a working fire. For the month of January, we've already had 39 calls for service, 32 medical calls, including 2 motor vehicle incidents, a gunshot victim, and a critical trauma patient that was airlifted to Albuquerque. 7 fire-related calls, including a working structure fire in Taos County. I have 2 crew members here in attendance tonight that I'm very proud of. They represented Angel Fire Department very well. I appreciate that. Our slash report, in December, we had disposed of 800 cubic yards of slash. Unfortunately, due to the high winds We've been limited in the month of January so far. Last week, we had our quarterly pharmacy inspection. It went well with no significant findings. Our Wildland Type 6 engine has a blown engine, and we are working with procurement to try and get it repaired as soon as possible before the wildland season. Our ladder truck is out of service and has been in Albuquerque since September. I'm trying to determine how extensive the repairs needed would cost. And at this time, no additional work other than. Be safe. No additional work other than what they've already done has been authorized until I get a report back from the company. My focus for the next month is to drill down into our current budget and by line item and make sure that it's solid. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have one quick question. I know Mr. Epler mentioned how he's going to take inventory of equipment for the March budget. I know, would you be doing the same thing as far as out of commission equipment?
Yes, we do have, Mayor Lindsay, Manager Weir, councilors, we do have equipment that is out of service. If you've been over to Station 3, you can see that there's equipment that's out of service that's no longer used by the fire department.
We probably make notes of those just to try to deal with that.
Yes, sir. And I believe there's an auction coming up, and some of that equipment could probably go to use somewhere else. Any other questions? Again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to serve our community.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Strickland, are you going to give the police report?
Mr. Mayor, esteemed council, clerk Mark, and then our village manager. I haven't met you yet. I'm Jeremy Strickland. I'm Lieutenant for Range Fire Police Department. I don't know exactly what was shared. I believe you have copies of everything that we've been doing for the last year. For the month of December, we had 83 citations. Those primarily were speeding and the parking citations. We had 38 calls for service, but property accidents and parking were a large part of those just because of the snow and the big influx of individuals that have been visiting Angel Park. I was gone for a week for internal affairs training, being that we're a small department. It would just be me, and then the chief is the one that makes the final decision, so it was needed that we need a separation for the department when investigations are being done. As far as the year of 2023, I'm sorry, we had one arrest in December. We had 45 arrests for 2023, 387 citations, calls for service. We had 472 in Crime Star. We have a new Mark 43 report system that gathers data. We have 162 calls for service there. So all in total, we're about 630 calls for service for the last year. The department has made some changes. We have new badges, new markings on our units. We have a new unit. We have new equipment that was installed or currently being installed. We have a new track system that's going in that will greatly increase our officers' ability to handle things on the street as opposed to having to handle stuff there and then move back to the office and move back and forth. It should be able to be a contained system where they can take care of most things in the unit. The equipment has been installed in 4 units. We still have the chief's unit and 1 more unit that we'll be working on in the near future for install. The training, I've been to FBI LEDA as well as
Glenn Merles, and then Mark Fitch also went. Sadly, we lost Mark. He had to move out of state last year. I was new as of March, and then we hired Travis Jarrett in, I believe it was November. Officially, he started December. And the department's still moving on. We have further trainings in the works. We're trying to get our officers, make sure that they're up to speed and all the new things that you're facing as far as policing. I'm sure you're aware that policing has been taking a pretty good hit the last 10 years, and it's been a hard career field for our officers staff to deal with. But we're trying to keep them engaged, trying to provide some incentives for them to be able to stay here and continue working for Ranger Fire. With that, I stand with any questions.
Lieutenant Strickland, what would you think about the possibility of putting a traffic cam out here somewhere, since this is the sort of the heart of the village and there's so much activity around here?
I think that would be a great idea. Just recently, we've been dealing with a lot of calls for service with Angel Sky Apartments, as well as Lowe's has some issues in the parking lot in that area. I think it would be a good idea for at least our investigations, because we'd be able to see who's coming and going, especially with a lot of the accidents, the drunk driving, a lot of the things that we deal with. It would be a very good idea. That, and then we wouldn't be getting all the calls for, hey, how's the roads? We would just say, look at the traffic camera. So,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, officer. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tammy, do you have anything to report?
I do. Good evening, Mayor Lindsay, council members, village manager Ware, Clerk McClendon. I have a couple things here. The first thing, I'm requesting approval to add a part-time person to the visitor center along with the full-time person. That keeps the visitor center always having someone there 7 days a week. I'm also requesting approval to add a local bar from the tourism department for that part-time position, and I gave you that bar. If it is approved, then we will finish getting the signage on it. And I stand for any questions on that part.
Are we gonna do a motion on this?
We've got a motion on each one separately. So there needs to be a motion to approve, or a motion to approve the addition of a part-time person, and then a motion to approve the bar, which the bar is transferring money out of full-time to part-time since this is a part-time person. And by the way, since we were able to split the salary, Ms. McClendon's salary between HR and tourism, we freed up the funds, so this is not actually an increase in cost to tourism, it's just movement of funds from one account to another. So two motions.
I make a motion to approve acquiring a second employee to work in the visitor center so it can be open 7 days a week.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Howe,
Aye.
motion carries.
And I also make a motion to approve the bar to move $20,000 from one account to the appropriate account to support this action.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert,
Aye.
motion carries.
I also would like a recommendation and approval on the form that I gave you with, on Mason Rose. They did our webpage, our tourism webpage for us. They did a great job. It's done. We retain them on a monthly retainer to teach me how to run and function that webpage. And I have full access now. The webpage is up. If anybody has, if you want to look at it, it's at visit angelfirenm.com. But I'm asking that we go ahead, in this thing, it says we have to give them a 30-day notice of cancellation. And so I'm asking if we can give that cancellation. I think we've gotten everything from them. And I stand for any questions.
So this would be terminating this contract at the
Yes.
end of the next 30-day session?
Yes.
And this is just, it's a separate entity that does the main village website?
No, it has nothing to do with the main village website. It is the tourism. It's a brand new website that they built for us. And yes, it's a totally different website.
And you feel comfortable you can add to it? Anything to update?
They have taught me very, very well. They did a great job.
So, then I guess I'll get a motion to terminate the monthly fee of $1,500. I'm sorry, what's the name of the company?
Mason Road.
Mason Road,
Down at the bottom.
in the next 30 days. With a 30-day notice to cancel the payment terms.
I make a motion that we give Mason Rose Agency a termination letter for 30 days to terminate the work order that we have with them.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Howe,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you guys and the public also for trusting me in the tourism department, for all the visitors that come in and the events that we do, and also for the opportunity to be there for our employees as HR director. I'm very appreciative that I've got those positions, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, what just happened is something that I intentionally set up. These three items, based on the current policy standards, I have the authority to approve without bringing them to council. I wanted to bring them to council even though I have that authority. As an example, because later in the meeting, I'll be asking you to change that authority and actually take it away from me. And I wanted this to be an example for you guys to see. These are the things that the previous policy allowed the village manager to make decisions without consultation of anybody. Not even the mayor was required. And so with the changes that we're going to be seeing coming, or that I'm recommending in a future line item, I no longer will have that authority. These items in the future would be required to come before you. So these are great examples, I thought, of the differences in what I'm proposing as the policy. And tell me, do you not think that these are things that not only should be brought before the council, but in doing so should be made public so that the public knows what we're doing?
I think it's a perfect example. Having the visitor center open 7 days a week is something that was kind of a no-brainer. There were several holidays last year that I noticed it wasn't open for, and I get that they're holidays, but it's when the bulk of our tourists are here. We go out to have the visitor center open when we have the most people here, so I don't have any problem changing that policy. I think the same is going to apply later to some of the agenda items for other hiring activities, so the more you all know about what we're doing, I don't see any harm in it.
Thank you.
Finally, Julie.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, Manager, Weir, and Council, London. Before you have our current status as on our road projects. So currently, Northvale Avenue, the construction has been substantially completed. There are some remaining funds. I'm checking with DOT to see if we can use those remaining funds for plan design to extend Vale toward the plan design to extend Vale towards Alta Road. On Country Club St. Andrews, we also have substantially completed that project. There are a few punch list items like guardrails and coatings for the manholes that have to be done. The coatings for the manholes have to be done in a warmer temperature, so that'll be done in the spring. But the manhole, or the guardrails, we expect to be installed as soon as Sandbar gets them. So we're waiting, we have a supply issue. So we're waiting on those to come in. CS Valley Road, funding was received from NMDOT for that intersection. This project is expected to begin in the spring. For North Angel Fire Road, Bill Burgess Road, funding has been received for the plan design. This project is currently active. Proposed new projects to complete road phases. Jackson Hole Road, we propose to apply for the FY25 co-op funds for plan design. That will complete that project of Vale, Mammoth, and then Jackson Hole up towards Five Springs Road. We did apply for that co-op funding last year. We did not receive it. Excuse me. Country Club Drive resurfacing. We propose to apply for the TPF funding in FY25 for the resurfacing. That design has been completed on that project. And I request from the council and from your roads committee, any new road projects you would like to have submitted to me so that we can proceed with the plan design for those projects. It'd be FY26. And I'll stand for any questions.
Toward the end of last calendar year, we were getting ready to do something on South Angel Fire Road and Lakeview Park Drive.
Yeah, that's the Lithotech project.
Right.
I believe that project is on hold as far as I know. It is not something that I have been actively involved with. But I know that they have talked to GM Emulsions about using that technology and another company to use that technology on those roads.
So is that money still available?
That's not from a federal or state fund. So that's from government budgeted items. So I'm assuming that those funds are available.
Do you know if the past council meetings that was approved?
It was.
In November, wasn't it?
It was approved and then a week later it was postponed.
My understanding is they were going to do all of the base course and put a single layer of chip seal on top, and the decision I think was made that the weather it was too late in the season to do it.
I guess my recommendation would be we need to relook that and decide for sure if those are the right places to do it. And if so, what impact it will have. For example, would we come back on Lakeview Park and put sewer lines under there 2 years from now? So maybe a relook just to make sure that it's the best use of that money.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to warn the council, that's not an item agenda, so it really shouldn't be discussed at this time. And also to inform you that Julie is our grants administrator. That's not a grants-related project. and that's why it's not being reported here. It is a roads project that's being funded by internal money or potentially GO bond money. That has to be redecided by the council since the project was placed on hold.
So we'll have that put in front of us at some point in time.
We will have that put in front of us before next spring
The
to
idea
decide
would
how to
be
move
to have
forward.
plenty of time before they actually move forward with that. To make some critical
It'll be
decisions.
soon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I don't believe we have any committee reports this evening. Oh, planning and zoning.
Nope. Oh, shucks.
Oh, I shut.
Yes.
Then we'll be moving on to new business. I would like to open discussion for Mayor Pro Tem. Are there any?
I would like to nominate Chuck Howe as Mayor Pro Tem.
For a second? Any other nominations?
I'll second.
In that case, if there's no further discussion, can I get a motion to approve Mayor, or Chuck Howe as Mayor Pro Tem?
Make a motion to approve Chuck Howe as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Counselor Crane? Aye. Counselor Humbert?
Aye.
Counselor Weeks?
Aye.
Counselor Howe?
If you ask me, I'll say aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Larry. All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to get open discussion approval of resolution 2024-01, a resolution establishing a code of ethics.
Make a motion for discussion approval of resolution 2024-01, a resolution establishing a code of ethics.
Second.
Discussion.
This was,
So just so the audience knows, myself, Councilor Crane, and Councilor Weeks attended a 3-day training with the New Mexico Municipal League, where we had a session on code of ethics, and therefore feel more prepared to vote on the resolution establishing our code of ethics.
Can the audience ask a question about this discussion?
Certainly.
Was there previously not a code of ethics?
There was.
Okay.
Just has
Is
to
this
be readopted.
an update or
It has
just
to
sort
be
of a?
adopted, yes, sir.
Okay.
We didn't do it at the first meeting because we were all on our way to Santa Fe, and getting the people plowing the streets and emptying the trash was the priority for that meeting. So we have a motion to adopt in a second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe?
Aye.
Counselor Weeks?
Aye.
Counselor Crane?
Aye.
Counselor Humbert?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next, I'd like to get a motion for discussion approval of resolution 2024-02, a resolution establishing the Open Meetings Act and rescinding all others.
I make a motion for discussion approval of resolution 2024-02, a resolution establishing the Open Meetings Act and rescinding all others.
Second.
Discussion.
The only thing I have on it, I guess, is at the end there, it has Keith as the village clerk. Would that be
We'll have to
something that'll need to be
change
updated?
Right, it'll need to be changed to Mr. McClendon.
Really should be a position, it shouldn't be a person's name.
So
You can make a motion to amend it. You can make a motion to approve with amendments.
Make a motion that we amend the signature block on the resolution 2024-02, a resolution establishing the open meetings resolution and rescinding all other open meeting resolutions to state village clerk.
I'll second.
Roll call vote on the amendment.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now can we get a roll call vote on the approval of the resolution?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
Councilor Crane.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next, we need a discussion and approval of resolution 2024-04, a resolution calling for the reimbursement of actuals of Officer Tom Hicks for travel during training.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I think you missed item B.
Oh, I
Jump to item E.
My mistake. I'd like to get a motion for discussion and approval of resolution 2024-03, a resolution amendment to site plan approved by resolution 2002-11 for commercial developer on tract 29 of Agua Fria Estates.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from that because I was on planning and zoning when we met and discussed and approved the site plan.
I make a motion for discussion and approval of resolution 2024-03, resolution amendment to the site plan approved by resolution 2002-11 for commercial development of tract 29 of Agua Fria Estates.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Manager Weir, Corporate London, Santos Martinez, planning and zoning consultant. What you have before you is an amendment to the previously approved site plan from 2002. That was for a 120-room hotel plus 26,000 square feet of retail. This amended site plan moves the hotel from 120 rooms to 150 rooms. It also adds an urgent care facility, which is a medical use under our code in this zoning district, which is separate from a retail use listed under our code. You'll notice in the site plan, there's more than adequate parking provided for this location. A little background is that about a week and a half ago, we had a very positive meeting with Ms. Lillian Montoya. She is the CEO and president of Christus St. Vincent Hospital in Santa Fe. She also brought into that meeting her strategic planning manager and her COO. There's an extremely high interest in partnering with Christus St. Vincent to develop the western portion of the property with an urgent care facility. They've asked for some demographic information that would demonstrate that this would be serviceable for the entire valley and not just the village of Anglefier. There's also conversation on the second floor allowance of the retail component, maybe providing apartments, in addition to allowing some of the first floor units of the hotel to be provided for staffing to stay within that facility. There are now two conversations for a brand of this hotel. That's why the agenda items you have just reference a hotel use. They don't say in 2002 it was a Holiday Inn Express. We don't want to be tied down to if it's there are no variances requested on height. It's still going to comply with the height standards for that zoning district. Would also have to comply with the architectural standards in the overlay. The property owner is present tonight and stand for any questions you may have regarding this project. P&Z did look at this amended site plan, recommended a positive recommendation moving forward to council.
Is the 7,000 square feet for the urgent care, does that take into account the whatever changes the hospital group might want to look at, or is that a?
It's a big envelope that they can look at. If honestly, we've had similar conversation with Judge Hill's self-storage facilities where we originally approved a site plan that had to be tweaked once he got the building ordered. So if we do have to have some ongoing conversations on one of the buildings and adjusting some floor area, we would bring that back to you prior to permit being issued. But at the time right now, this seems to be workable envelope for them to look at. We've also had some conversations this evening with your interim fire chief about some of the medical services and facilities that could complement a facility like this. So we're gathering a lot of information to return back to Kristen St. Vincent. I will point out that there's a heavy interest in being able to identify reliable tax credits to make this deal work. I think it's different in having a conversation in the private sector to try to get the wheels moving on this, which is different from the village trying to secure a grant up front and then try to get this to fruition. I think meeting the president and CEO in her office for the length of time we did was very positive, and that there's a genuine interest to try to get this moving forward and actually make this vacant lot developable and get some life into it. So.
Santos, I have a question. How would the urgent care relate to the clinic we have now?
We're going to have a conversation with the hospital district CEO on how that can complement. We also know there are challenges with the clinic now on staffing and availability of service. And so there could be a good complement to provide actual urgent care to complement the clinic, but we're still having those conversations.
Okay. One of the things that I would urge in this is that they bring in a physical therapist, because this town is made up of older but very active people.
One of the things Krista St. Vincent has asked us to do is get a demographic profile of the valley, and so that they can get a better idea of what type of services to provide. We'd like to get some more information about the wellness center, services that can complement that too. But that this isn't just an Angel Fire ask, it's for Elizabethtown, Ute Park, Guadalupe, Black Lake. And if it turns out their demographics are asking for physical therapy, or it could turn out that we also need family medicine, with kids at the schools. They want to be able to look at it holistically and what would make this work and be successful.
Well, we burn up the road going to Taos for people going for physical therapy. So it would be fantastic if we had it right here.
I think that's the reason why Krista St. Vincent is pretty interested in partnering with us.
Any further discussion?
No, sounds good.
So can I get a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Aye.
Councilor Crane. Aye. Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to give a discussion approval of resolution 2024-04, resolution calling for the reimbursement of actuals to Officer Tom Hicks for travel during training.
I make a motion to discuss and approve resolution 2024-04, a resolution calling for the reimbursement of actuals to Officer Tom Hicks for travel during training.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Hey, I'm back again. So Officer Hicks went to training. It's, we actually have requirements every 2 years. We have to have specialized training and some career development. And this is one of the ones he chose. He went and was for a week in Vegas. This is to pay for his travels and air. I don't know if it's, he did have airfare that he paid for, as well as lodging, incidentals. Lodging in Vegas always comes with resort fees and everything else. So this is what this is for.
Any discussion? The vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Aye.
Councilor Weeks.
Aye.
Councilor Crane.
Aye.
Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a presentation of the FACC Biomass Processing Facility grant proposal.
Did not see Mr. Overby in attendance.
No, he's in Dallas, actually. So we'll move on to item G, discussion and approval of the Workforce Housing Committee. So I have been working diligently to put together a workforce housing committee, and I'd like to get a motion to approve the committee. I would like to ultimately have 5 members, but I currently have 3 commitments, as well as 1 non-voting ex officio and council liaison. So for workforce housing, we have Robbie Puskarich, who's a realtor in our area, Joshua Harris, tradesman, and Matt Mitchell, economist. And then we also have Bruce Roach, who's volunteered to sit as a non-voting ex officio. And Councilor Crane has agreed to be the liaison to this committee.
I make a motion to discuss and approve workforce housing committee.
I'll second. I guess we discussed.
Well, if there's any discussion,
Yeah.
again, it's Robbie Puskarich, Joshua Harris, Matt Mitchell, Bruce Roach, and Councilor Crane as liaison.
Did we have a workforce housing committee before? This is all new,
This is
right?
very new.
Okay. That's great.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
On this committee here, I'm not familiar with the names that you put out there, but would there be possibly room for, say, somebody that rents here, somebody that is actually in the workforce?
There is. So again, that's 3 voting commitments. I would like to see 5, and that would certainly help round it out. I want to get this committee off the ground as soon as possible. Therefore, we'll start with the 3, but I would like to be able to add 2 more voting members as soon as possible. And yes, that would be ideal.
They decided how long we know, weekly, monthly?
We hope to have a minimum of monthly.
The committee will vote their own chair and set their schedule from us.
Exactly. With no further discussion, can we do a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, next up, discussion and approval of the Lodgers Tax Committee. We'll get the motion. The commitments I have for the Lodgers Tax Committee are Owen Curry, owner of Resort Properties Vanguard in the lodging industry, Nancy Bush, in lodging, Don Willingham, industry operator with Vanguard Resort, AJ Farmer, with Alpine Lumber, and Justin Temple, resident and his public representative.
Make a motion to discuss and approve the Lodgers Tax Committee with those named.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Who's going to be the liaison to that?
Well, I
committee?
apologize. Councilor Weeks has agreed to be the liaison on the Lodgers Tax Committee. Okay. Can we do a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Finally, on the agenda, well, not finally, but looking for discussion approval of a P and Z committee. This is actually a commission. And I have commitments from Leonard Bubba Davis, Jackie Boyd, Chris Reed, Robin May, and Kevin Ricketson.
I make a motion to discuss and approve planning and zoning commission with those named.
I'll second.
Sorry, same question, liaison on that one.
There won't be a liaison, but Santos will oversee
Okay.
that commission. We're ready for a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Crane.
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
motion carries.
And then I'd like to discussion and approval for the Fire Adaptive Committee. The members of that committee are Mike Overby, David Hartson, Martha Ashley, Don Clark, Scott Schaefer, Vicki Lanning, Mark Manley, and Ray Honey.
Make a motion to discuss and approve the Fire Adaptive Committee with those individuals named.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I guess with all these committees, the only thing is, I guess they'll kind of give us a report as well.
We'll have committee reports, hopefully. We didn't have any tonight, but yes. And I don't have a council liaison at the moment for that. I think if there's no further discussion, we can call for a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Item K, I'd like to get a motion for discussion and approval of the updated administrative procedures.
Make a motion for discussion approval of the updated administrative procedures.
Second.
Turn this over to Manager Weir at this time.
So, Mr. Mayor, council, did y'all receive copies of the, yeah, you got them in your packets. Good. So on the process for issuance, adherence, and maintenance of the administrative procedures, prior administration, previously that policy read that all contracts will go before council and that must meet council approval and that nobody had the authority to sign contracts without council approval. Prior administration changed that to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I didn't have that in my packet. Oh, the adherence is, let me see that real quick. So you can see I highlighted the items that were added in the language. They're highlighted in yellow. If there's a strike through, it was a previous language that was, I'm recommending being removed. But basically, administrative procedures will be issued by the village manager. It stopped there previously. I added approved by the council and signed by the mayor and village manager. So previously, policies like this one were at the sole discretion of the manager. It didn't have to come before council. So I think that's inappropriate. So I think the council should be, and again, my philosophy is when we're forced to work or to present things to the council, that's our opportunity to present things to the public. That's how the public knows what we're doing. So previously, the village manager was allowed to make the policies whatever the village manager wanted. And I'm basically trying to change that so that everything has to come through council. And with the approval of the council, so it'll be the recommendation of the village manager and approval of the council, signed by the village manager and the mayor. And the rest of the changes basically support that, sentiment and are just language to make sure that the village council has final approval of all changes to administrative policy.
You want to go through the implement weather and the contract?
Are we going to do all three of them? Or
Might as well do all three.
Under the same motion.
Sorry, they
Needs it, right?
weren't in the packet. That was so the inclement weather. Previously, the previous administration had worked.
You want contracts first, sorry.
Oh, contract.
Yeah.
I do have a question on that one.
Okay. So, like I started off last time, I'm sorry for the disorganization here, but previously it said that, so 2 administrations ago, it said that all contracts will be approved by the council and that nobody can sign a contract without council approval. Then it was changed to only agreements in excess of $60,000 had to come before council. And that's in line with what the procurement law is. Mark can attest to. There's a $60,000 standard that says if you buy something more than $60,000, you have to go out to RFP. So they kind of tried to align with that, but again, previously, every contract came to council. And I think that, that it's important. I did get feedback from some of the council that they thought there were some small, minute contracts that, you know, may not warrant waiting on the council or may not warrant the council's consideration. So with that, I'm recommending, and again, Councilman, I recommend if you don't like this, feel free to change it. This is just based on feedback I got from you guys. But I wanted to change it from in excess of $60,000 to all contracts or agreements with a term of 1 year or more require the approval of the village council. If you want to lessen that, I'm okay. We could go back to all contracts. Again, I just had some feedback from council that said, well, you know, if it's a contract that's only for 3 months and it's $20,000 or something, maybe it doesn't need to come to council. It's totally at your discretion. And by the way, with the change in the issuance clause, you guys can change these at your discretion.
Are we discussing on this or going to the next one?
I'm sorry?
We're gonna go and discuss on this.
We should vote on the whole thing, not individual.
We're gonna vote on the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the last one, I already got.
So,
Yeah, sorry, would that be just village funds, or is that gonna be grant funds as well? Because we have what's called law enforcement funds that come in for LEPF.
So with the grant fund, so for grants, if a grant is included in your budget, is itemized, the revenue and expense is included in your budget. When the council approves the budget, they approve that grant. That grant doesn't need to come back to council for approval. Although I would highly recommend that you would come and present it to the council because again, it's all actually kind of an opportunity to tell the public what you're going to be doing with that grant money.
Sure.
If it's not in the budget, or if the expense is greater than what is in the budget, so some of these have matches or whatever, any grant like that would need to come to council before it's even submitted. So let me clarify. If it's in the budget, you can submit and ask for the grant without going to council. The final approval of acceptance of the grant is going to be required. Some of them require resolution from the council. So you can go after a grant if it's in the budget without bringing it to council first, because they should have approved it as part of the grant. As part of the budget. All grants will come back to council for approval and acceptance. If there is money or expense that's related to that grant that's not in the budget, it's going to have to come to council before you submit the grant. And it will have to come back to council once we receive the grant for acceptance.
Correct. So our LEPF fund, it's a lump sum of money for equipment, new vehicles, whatever that may be.
So y'all have already received that
received
grant?
it, correct.
That grant specifies how the funds can be spent.
Correct.
And in that case, it wouldn't have to come before the council, because if the council accepted the grant, they've already approved the expenditure of that money.
Okay. Thank you.
So a little history, this document was written in 2006, and it was a good document at that point. But the issue was that the manager wrote it and the manager totally controlled it over the years. Changing it like it's been proposed tonight makes it a lot more transparent to council. It's an opportunity for us to know what's going on, and it's an opportunity for the public to know, so that we're keeping everyone involved. And that's why I really support bringing this. It's not a burden for anyone, and we all have a much better idea of what we're doing.
Yes.
I will say at this time, I would like to get an amended motion for discussion of improvement for the updated administrative procedures, item 1.
So you wanna do each
We can
individually?
have discussion on each individual
Okay.
one, because I think we're getting a little convoluted.
So I'll make a motion for discussion approval of updated administrative procedures, item 1, process for issuance, adherence, and maintenance of administrative procedures.
Second.
And this will be the one where we are simply changing the language to read approved by council and signed by the mayor and village manager.
That's correct.
This is the change that we're approving.
Instead of being approved by a manager.
Correct.
Can I go ahead and get a vote on that?
Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert,
Aye.
Counselor Crane.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So then I will then make a motion for discussion approval of updated administrative procedures, item 2, approval of contracts.
I'll second.
And this change being that the language will now read contracts, all contracts and agreement. The new language is with a term of 1 year or more, to strike the language in excess of $60,000, because it's my understanding that already requires state approval through the procurement process, in other words.
So anything over 60 is gonna have to come to you anyway.
Correct.
It's really,
Making it more stringent.
what I'm doing is moving it back to just say, if a contract is 1 year or more, it has to come before council before it can be signed.
And if you'd like to add a dollar amount.
If you want to add a dollar amount, if you want to make it 6 months, it's up to you guys. I'm open to whatever you want. I just made a suggestion.
I was just gonna suggest, or in excess of $60,000, but is that you?
Yeah,
Because it comes through us
redundant.
anyway.
It's going to come anyway.
Any further discussion? You vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And finally, I'll make a motion for discussion approval of updated administrative procedures, item 3, inclement weather policy.
So, Mr. Mayor, council, on this one,
Need a second?
I'll second.
oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, council, on this one, I moved the item around. I think it used to be item B in the old policy, but the previous administration added a clause into this policy that said in the event that the Cimarron Municipal School District and/or Moreno Valley High School call for a 2-hour delay due to inclement weather conditions, ice and snow, the Village of Angel Fire will automatically be a 2-hour delay for all non-essential workers. My recommendation is to strike that language and just let the village make the decisions on when we're going to have delays and when we're going to close the office. Nothing against the Cimarron School District, but it's a big school district. They have many things to consider in their decisions that don't necessarily have to do with Moreno Valley. They could call it because there's a big snowstorm in Cimarron and we have sunny skies here. So all I'm asking is that instead of letting another government agency make a decision on for us, that we are allowed to make those decisions internally.
Any more discussion?
I guess,
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
Would there be a process? I mean, you have a process to notify employees or?
Yeah, and that process is actually somewhat called for in here in the other language that was in here previously. The management, when the decision is made, the decision will be made in consultation with the police chief and the fire chief, because the fire chief is also our emergency manager, and the streets department. And that group of people will get together, we'll discuss what, and it's about safety. And by the way, there is a clause in here that if somebody lives in a location, like if it's sunny here and it's snowing like crazy in Guadalajara or Mora, because they can call in and they have a way, we want people to be safe. The only thing and that's in here, that it describes what they would need to do in the case they didn't feel safe. But the only thing I'm asking for is instead of having Cimarron Municipal Schools make a decision based on 2-hour delays, that we allow the staff at the village to make those decisions.
Yeah, and I saw that, I just didn't see a system that you had in place for that.
I'm sorry?
Would it be by email?
Oh, yeah. So we have a process, we would notify, we have a process of contacting people. It would go out by mass email, but we would actually have the department heads contact their staff directly. And in here, it states that it's the responsibility of the staff person to make sure that their department head has a contact phone number for them for these decisions.
So this covers not only an opening of the morning, but say it starts snowing heavily at 2:30 in the afternoon.
So the prior policy it only mentioned Cimarron Municipal School District for a 2-hour delay. It did not have any language in it for closure once the offices have been opened. So that's always been the discretion of the management team at the village. The only thing I'm removing or asking to be removed is the fact that it's an automatic if Cimarron School District calls it. And that's all that's in the current language.
Yes, sir.
The reason that they went to that stuff, the courts had went to that and everything else, that they were coinciding with delays in openings with the schools was because of childcare. I'm chasing buses in the morning when I come out on day shift. And during the inclement weather and everything else, we're gonna have a 2-hour delay, or employees that have children, they're gonna bring their kids to the village hall, they're gonna have to leave sit down at the bus stop and wait.
I mean, I share the same concern there. It seems to me like that was probably why that was put in there, so that employees wouldn't have to scramble at the last minute. They knew they had those 2 hours to figure out how to get their kids to school, how their childcare, those things are gonna work, versus now, if you get rid of that, they have, they may just get notified that there's gonna be a 2-hour delay, and they have to go to work, and they have no way to handle it.
Well, so, Mr.
I assume you would probably have some leeway for your employees. I would like to assume that.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, that's taken into consideration, even though I don't know that we're legally allowed to ask how many children you have. For employees, I think it is well known who does and doesn't have children. And,
But this language gets rid of that. You don't have to ask them anymore.
we don't have to ask to close, and we've never had. I mean, with this, I think what you'll find is we want this to be a positive place of employment. People enjoy coming to work, and these things will be considered in management's decision as part of the process, I mean, much as they are today and have always been. The difference is this language took that decision-making capability away from the village. And there may be situations where it's not appropriate. It is appropriate for Cimarron to make that decision, but it's not appropriate for the village. So I think we'll take all those things into consideration. We want happy employees.
Do you see scenarios where you would have closures when Cimarron does not? In other words,
Well, we could do that anyhow.
Right.
Even in the current one without it, all this says is if Cimarron does it, then we have to do it. It doesn't preclude us from closing, even though Cimarron's not closing. We could still, that's a decision our management team should be making, whether or not our building, our employees will be required to come to work.
Would we want to maybe consider some language, just for parents who have kids in the Cimarron School District that they may?
I think you need to be careful. I think before we include language of that, we need to advise legal counsel as to its applicability to employment standards. Because again, I don't know that we can ask people who does and doesn't have children. So if you would like to bring this up at another meeting, again, with this other change that y'all have already approved, you guys can change this at will. You no longer have to wait on the village manager to change it. So if you guys want to do that, you're more than welcome to. I think the best thing for the village is to allow the management team to make that decision when offices will be closed. Keep in mind, I have children in school too. I have 2 of them.
Well, it's not, I mean, it's for future, not just for current, but for future guidelines, if these are adopted and they're adopted for 20 years.
Well, again, it can be changed at any time.
Yep.
And you gotta look at the other side of the coin too. Employees without children, and we have a sunny day here, we need to have it at work.
Well, and they probably want to come to work too, so.
Exactly. So again, there'll be some case by case decisions, but we
Seems
just
like
want
it's
to
an
take
issue
that.
of just self-governance, it's all it is.
That's all it is. We just want to take
That's
it
all it
away
is.
from the Cimarron Municipal Schools. Again, I would imagine that in most instances, we would follow the same if we're in inclement weather.
Mhm.
But in the instances that there is an exception, we have the opportunity to make our own judgment call.
Well, it happens all the time, we'll get 2 feet of snow, they don't get nothing, or vice versa.
Exactly.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say that if you're looking for happy employees, it needs to apply to everybody. You can't just say, okay, people with kids don't have to come in this morning. But if you don't have kids, show up and work. Because I had no children. If you put me in that situation, I'd have done a better job.
And we're trying to, some of this is work in progress. We're trying to derive new options for staff to work from home. So, what I think you're going to see over the next year is a slew of policies being thrown to you guys because there's a lot of what I call practices, which is things you do that aren't in writing. And I'm not a big believer in practices. I believe in policies, which means you should write down what you're going to do, and then those policies should be your guidance in how you conduct your job. And I think for those that were with me previously when I was here, I wrote some of the first policies for the finance department. And I intend on that over time. It's not going to happen overnight. But my intention is to have standard policies, standard operating policies in every department for every job task.
I don't think it's such a different policy from most large municipalities. The school districts in those municipalities make a decision for their staff, and then the municipality either follows suit or, because there's obviously going to be some employees like roads, police, fire that are probably going to be on a slightly different standard than, office personnel. Essential personnel versus non-essential on an inclement weather day is going to be that judgment call.
It is unique because Cimarron's a long way away from here.
It is.
And that's basically the point of
It's almost a different climate zone.
And if it gets to a situation where we are not closing and Cimarron is and isn't working well, then we change the policy.
Mr. Eppler,
Yeah, I don't, I hope that nobody's under the impression that if the schools go on a 2-hour delay, that there's absolutely no option, everybody has to come to work. In my eyes, it's no different than if a need arises with somebody's children, maybe they're sick, have to be taken to the doctor. All comes back to communication. The person calling their manager saying, there's a 2-hour delay, I have to stay with my child. Or they have a doctor's visit, I need to stay with my child. So obviously, don't think for a minute that we're going to force people to come to work, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not gonna do it. If they call and have a need, whether it's a 2-hour delay or any other need that could arise, they will have the opportunity to call, and we'll do our best to accommodate.
Are they using their leave?
Probably.
So if it's inclement weather and they can't make it?
That would be.
It's in the policy.
I think, so I don't think that this is gonna be cleared up as a simple blanket thing, because we take in Moreno Valley, we take in Cimarron, we have people that live in Eagle Nest that move here and there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but
I did have employees that were complaining that what if they can't make it because of inclement weather, but the village is still open? They're required to use their leave. And it's a safety risk for my employees to get to work. What happens at that point? What decision do I make?
So in this policy, it basically says that if someone feels uncomfortable, it's a safety condition, they need to notify their manager, and the manager would, based on safety issues, approve PTO for them for that time frame. So again, that was already in the policy. I just didn't discuss it because I was just focusing on the change. But
Yeah,
this
sorry,
is-
it's a 2-page policy in here. We're just talking about the first sentence of one section, so.
Yeah, so the policy is, basically remains the same as it has been. Previous administration added the 2 sentences, maybe 3, about Cimarron Municipal Schools. I'm just taking those out and going back to what it had been for 20+ years before that.
But they just started that weather policy and said it went to the courts, because the courts made the accommodation to go with the schools because the people have to report for jury duty, get their kids to school and everything else. So all this school stuff actually started with the courts. So the courts, wouldn't uphold the judicial system where people that appear for their jury duty and everything else. I mean, 20 years ago, they weren't doing this. I've been in this game for 27 years, and it wasn't until probably the last 8, 9, maybe 10 years that the courts started adjusting their schedules toward the schools, and it was because of childcare issues and the jury duty situations.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Saying that it's the way it was for years.
Hand up over here.
Under the current policy, where you close the village offices based on the school district, how is that handled in terms of PTO? It is not counted? You don't have to take PTO if the offices are closed for 2 hours?
That's right. If there's a 2-hour delay, then you don't have, under the current policy, you don't have to take PTO. But if the management team calls for a 2-hour delay, you don't have to take PTO either. So nothing changes other than who's making the decision. Is it the schools making the decision, or are we gonna make the decision for our staff?
And the reason again is because of the different climate zones inside this school district.
Except for, there's a lot of kids that live here that go to schools. So
It's a
that's-
different climate district, but the same school district.
Same school. Kids, doesn't matter whether they live here or live in Cimarron, they're all going to the same school district.
I understand. And again, we're not basing the policy around the children in this. But at this point, I would like to call for a motion to postpone.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we postpone this item and bring it back at a subsequent meeting.
I'll second.
Mark?
Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Aye.
Counselor Weeks,
Aye.
Counselor Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you. Finally, discussion and approval of Adon Estrada for lobbying services.
Make a motion. I make a motion for discussion and approval of Adon Estrada for lobbying services.
I make a motion for discussion approval of Adon Estrada for lobbying services.
Mr. Estrada?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Adon Estrada. I have been the district superintendent for the last 10 years. So for the last 10 years, I have been making the drive at 4 a.m. To decide what the inclement weather. And the one thing that is different about this district in comparison to everywhere in the rest of the state, 1,300 miles of district. So we're one of the smallest school districts in the state of New Mexico, excluding all of the micro districts, but still one of the largest land mass areas. So huge
territory to make a decision on. Very difficult. Made the call many times, Dr. Jackie Boyd, what's it look like over there? Over here, we've got nothing. What do you think we should do? So a lot of things that are considered when those decisions are made. Tough call. We were never heroes, no matter what the decision we made. In July, I retired as a superintendent of Cimarron Schools, and I come here to offer my services as the lobbyist for the village of Angel Fire. I have never been a lobbyist before, but I have done this job, the lobbying job, for the district for the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, I was part of the focus group for the superintendents of the state of New Mexico. There's 89 superintendents in the state of New Mexico. The last 10 years, we identified a focus group. I had been on that focus group for the last 10 years and gathered everyone's thoughts, everyone's needs, very different from one community to another community, tried to put them together into a one-page document that we would hand out to politicians and say, this is how you can help us, help you to educate your students. And for the last 10 years, we were very successful in increasing the teacher funding, increasing the grant funding, the support that we got for our educational programs in the schools. I have been the grant writer for the district, and I don't even think that even the first year, but including the first year, every year I was able to significantly gather more funds for our district than what my total salary was for the year. So it is something that I have been doing for a long period of time. It is something that is near and dear to my heart because it means student funding at that time. And I want to offer my services to the village of Angel Fire to continue to do the same thing. I have already been to Santa Fe. I have registered as a lobbyist, and I am open for any questions that you might have.
Will you be lobbying for other municipalities in our area as well?
No, sir.
Not in the district? No others?
Not at this point. When I was the superintendent, I focused very much on making this a district instead of all of the individual communities. I definitely focus on, I recognize that there are similar needs. If you look at the pre-identified bills that are before the legislature right now, there are already bills that are written that speak to the things that you're looking for: infrastructure, support with the airport, roads, water and sewage. There's already bills out there that were written for other communities, so I definitely want to work with those communities to figure out how they did it, what they did, who they talked to. But specifically, I'm not going to be working with any other communities to share those services with them in the district.
How much time would you be devoting to the job?
That would really be up to the council and the staff. I have identified a daily rate, and so I would just take account of that time. I believe that it's important for me to be knowledgeable in the needs of the community, not just what's happening in Santa Fe, but the discussion that's happening here, so that I can go back and relay that and trying to be creative in my thought process and see, okay, here's what I'm hearing in my community, and these are some of the grant opportunities that are available in the state. How can we get those together and get the right people on board to help fund projects for Angel Fire?
Well, I want to say that over the last several years, there has been billions of dollars in this country up for those entities that went after it. And we didn't. And it's time that we start getting out there and start getting some money coming in out of that to help this village.
I'd like to reiterate that and just to state that we can't stress how important your role in our village is going to be.
I have a question. Now, your lobbying is not specifically limited to education. You're leaving the educational aspect of doing for.
This will be for the Village of Angel Fire.
It's going to be specific to the needs of the Village of Angel Fire.
Leaving professional business, whatever aspects that takes, governmental. So it's not just limited to education.
My expertise comes from education, and I believe that has gotten my foot in the door. I have retired as an educator, and I believe that those skill sets are going to be able to transfer over.
Mr. Dillon?
Do you have any experience with grants?
Absolutely, yes, and that's one of the things that I mentioned, including my first year as a superintendent. Every year I was able to earn more grants for our community than I received in my salary. So even if that was all I did, I was successful in that. I did a little.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
My only question was, and there was, we got the contracts and there was a couple of small typos that I caught, so I just
That's
want
what I
to
was
make sure
doing.
those were noted.
So, Mr. Mayor, we will need an amendment. There were 2 typos found in the contract submitted to council for approval. One of them is in section 2. It currently reads full force for 1 and then in parentheses 3 years. It should read in full force for 3 years, the word 3. So the word 1 needs to be changed to the word 3. In section 2, and then under compensation and payment, it currently reads, this contract is not to exceed $60,000 per year. Unfortunately, there was a 0 left off on the 60,000, so we do need a motion to amend that contract with those 2 changes before we vote to approve it.
I make a motion to amend this contract in the following. First, under section 2, term of the agreement, it shall continue in full force for 3 years instead of duplicative 1 and 3 years. And then finally, under the compensation, total cost of services and reimbursement of expenses will not exceed, and there's a 0 missing from $60,000 per year.
Second.
Can you do a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Pal,
Aye.
Councilor Weeks,
Aye.
Councilor Crane,
Aye.
Councilor Humbert.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Oh, one more question, I
Yes,
guess.
sir.
So, what do we got, 2 more weeks left in session?
Mm.
Do you know? How many
Till
more
the
weeks
31st
left in
month.
session?
Till the 31st of the month, just in January.
So do we need to have another vote? Was that?
We still need a vote to approve.
We just
The first
amended-
vote was to approve.
That was just a vote to amend.
Amend.
So we're still in discussion.
We're still in discussion.
So I guess our vision would be that the lobbying will go on all year, anticipated to try to get us a bunch of money next year. That's kind of what we're looking at.
So I think that this year, I believe that this year is going to be more about relationship building and identifying who the key players are and making sure that we have projects ready to go and have the right focus groups. We have several communities that I saw have been identified and staffed. I think that's going to be very helpful for next year.
And Mr. Mayor, just so the council knows, the reality is very few decisions are made when the legislature's in session. Most of the decisions are made long before that. A lot of it is done for the record, but if you talk to the elected officials, it's when they're in session during the summer and they're having hearings and they're getting input from the community. That's when you really have your biggest bang. The legislative session is really just to confirm the work you've done during the non-legislative session, the committee work that you've done when they're preparing for the legislative session. If you have an idea now, we can go in and say, hey, you guys have already submitted all these bills. Here's the ones we support, and we'll back you on those, or we need your support on this bill. But if we want to get new legislation in or get numbers changed, that are going to be part of the budget, we need to be working on that in May, June, July.
I would just recommend, I know the municipal league does some lobbying efforts,
Absolutely.
not specific to any one entity, it's really more of the collective. So hopefully that's an entity that you'll know more to partner with. And again, my understanding is most of our other municipalities in this area do employ a lobbyist specifically to chase funds in the next session.
Absolutely, and I work closely with Monica.
That's also why we feel like it's important that it's a 3-year agreement.
You gotta get the pipeline built first before it's gonna have any money in it.
Sitting on a hand right now.
Is there any further discussion?
Make a motion to,
We have the motion, I'm sorry, the motion's over, I think we're ready for a vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Cal.
Aye.
Counselor Humbert.
Aye.
Counselor Weeks.
Aye.
Counselor Crane.
aye.
Motion carries.
And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming this evening, and thank you for participating in discussions. And we certainly look forward to having more and seeing you here. So thanks again. Meeting adjourned.
Congratulations.